And welcome back, Southwest Florida. Glad you stayed with us, and I think you're going to be delighted as well as we get a chance to catch up with what's going on with the City of Fort Myers Police Department. And if it's the police department, I always like to talk to the head man in charge. So I got the head man here, the Chief of Police. Chief, welcome to the show.
Morning, thank you.
Chief, I mentioned head man in charge. You've been the head man in charge for how many years now?
I'm working on my 29th year at the police department. I've been chief, just finishing up my 6th year.
What's the big difference in being at the top and then or a lieutenant or a captain or whatever? Is it a big difference?
It's just the responsibility and the accountability. I mean, at the end of the day, you're responsible. You're accountable for what goes on, good or bad. So, you always got to kind of keep that back in mind. And the other thing is, this is what we do for a living. It's you can't let it consume you. You're not what's important. The organization and the services that you deliver are what are important. So I always keep that very forefront.
Now, just curious, we watch a lot of television. We see crime scenes and things like that, and we see detectives come up on those scenes, or if it's a fire, we see the fire chief comes up on the scene. Do you actually come up on some scenes as a chief, or you just
No,
stay
and some
away?
I do, and some
Okay.
I do. One thing is I have a lot of confidence in our staff and our people, so they know what they're doing. They don't need to come there and say, hey, are you doing this, are you doing that? I may do that afterwards once I review what's been done, but I let our people do what they do. I mean, they're experts in their field. They're highly trained, highly educated, and I have all the confidence in the world in their ability and how they deliver services.
Okay, tell us about the CALEA accreditation and what does that mean to the police department and to an individual like myself?
Well, CALEA is a national accreditation. It's Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. Actually, I just came back from Chicago this weekend. But you have assessors that come to your organizations, they go through your policies, your procedures, and then they go through the proofs to ensure that you're following those policies and procedures. And these are standards that are set from across the United States. When I was up there, we had about 125 other agencies that were also going through the same process. Out of the 490 standards that they require, we hit 97%, which was a very high percentage on our first recred. Every 3 years, you go through this review. So I was very pleased with the outcome. We're accredited for the next 3 years. It's a serious process that gives you the credibility of being a professional organization, carrying professional services to the community. You do exactly what you say you do, and they give you the certified stamp of approval saying that. So for us, it's a big accomplishment.
Now, 97% out of a possible 100?
No, it was like 490 standards.
Okay. How do you go about getting a 97? What are some key things you had to focus on?
Documentation. First off, making sure that policy meets the standard that CALEA approves of, whether it be pursuits, arrests. It covers a wide evidence, either destruction at the end of the case or how we handle our evidence process, our training files, and then having the documentation to say we're doing everything within that policy.
Okay.
And it's important.
Tell us about the uniform crime reporting, how that works and how that impacts us.
Well, the uniform crime, referred to a lot of times as UCR, and it's FBI, federal government, really, it's based upon description, but they identify what your crimes are. And for us, it's homicide, sexual battery, assault, burglary, grand theft auto, and theft. All those kind of combined into what your UCR is. And a lot of times, I mentioned it's by description only, not by a state statute, because we fall into that southern eastern region of the United States, so we're all have the same description on what those violations are, what the crime may be. 10 years ago, we were over 7,000 UCR. Last year, we were around 3,035. So we've seen some major reductions over the last 10 years. And for the first 6 months of this year, we're about 2-3% down from an overall standpoint. And our violent crime is what we've seen the largest significant reduction. There's a 10% reduction in violent crime for the first 6 months. So, the strategies that we have in place, we feel that they're good strategies, they're working, and we want to make sure that we continue with those.
What happens in the UCR concept? What happens when a police department is not doing good in terms of their UCR? You get a slap on the wrist? Can you lose something? What's the penalty?
Well, usually the chief loses his job.
Okay.
So that's important, obviously.
Like an F-cat almost, right?
Yeah, when you look at it, and as we started off, I'm responsible. I'm accountable for what happens, and if we're performing well, or if we're performing poorly. And obviously, it's important to me that we perform well. So you look at strategies, not just within the city of Fort Myers or the state of Florida, but I'm looking at stuff. What are they doing in D.C.? What are they doing in Cleveland? What are they doing in Richmond? What are they doing in Nashville, Knoxville? What strategies do they have that we can implement within our own department that helps us reduce crime? And that's what, I pull annual reports all the time. I review those annual reports from other jurisdictions, other police departments, because they're going to brag about what they do good.
Right.
And I want to see what they do good because I want us to implement the same strategies.
Dunbar community policing, I've been seeing a lot over the years. I've been seeing them, like in recent times especially, on the ground at various events with the youths and so on. How you feel about what's going on with Dunbar community policing? Kind of update us on that in about 30 seconds.
Officer Dominique and Officer Fuller, they are unbelievable, as most of our community policing officers. They just go above and beyond. You're right, because I'm at a lot of those events too, and they're always there. They have a number of mentoring programs that have just really been taken off within the Dunbar, and it really focuses on good core values. It focuses on honor and ethics, moral standing, education, staying focused in school. And it's just so important as we see this next generation come through, because you and I both know those are the ones that are going to be the leaders of the future, and to be able to establish those relationships, provide some education, provide direction, and really provide support in a lot of those cases, encouragement to see those kids prosper. But they had a youth explosion last week. Was just, man, it was a great event. We had a lot of good speakers.
Yeah, I heard
that
good
came
time.
through.
I heard
it was really, really positive. So, those types of events is stuff that we've got to continue to focus on to see if we can't move forward and swell those ranks of those kids coming in, so that it's a win-win.
What are you doing specifically to reduce violent crime this summer?
Well, we've been very busy. We have our violent crime task force, which employs just about everybody under the sun from our federal, state, county, and local. But one of the things that we've added extra to that is we've looked at our neighborhoods throughout the city, and we looked at history and the probability of violent crime occurring in those neighborhoods. And then we're assigning officers to those neighborhoods for a period of time, 7 days a week, and all they do is stay in that neighborhood and try to either work with the residents or handle issues within that. We started seeing it in May, starting to see a reduction. In June, we had about a 20% reduction in uniform crime for these areas, and we're seeing the same as we exit July, that 20% reduction. So I believe that it's a good strategy. It's looking at probability of what's could happen or what's going to happen depending upon the history of that neighborhood. And I really think that that's been positive for us.
Coffee with a cup. I remember you came in here with a lot of enthusiasm about that. How many coffee with the cups have we had? Cup with a cup. Coffee with a cop. Coffee with a cop.
There you go.
Where are we with that?
You know what? And I always give a plug for Utopia and John.
Great soul food.
Yeah, and that's where it was. John had this sponsored. It's the second time he's done it. He does a phenomenal job. We had a number of people there from the community where, you're in there in the morning, you have a little breakfast, you have some coffee, you answer questions, and it's just a great opportunity in a non-threatening, police, when police show up, it's usually a little bit different. But this is just sit around, kind of shoot the breeze a little bit. And John Tober is a great host, and we look forward to hosting another.
And great food, John.
Yeah, he's got great food. And I was telling him, I said, no, I'm going on Lee. I always throw you a bone. He's always saying, hey, you're giving free advertising.
And John loves the free plug. That's Utopia's soul food restaurant and beauty salon right there on Emmett King. Final question, Chief.
Yes, sir.
The community, they are the eyes and ears for the police department. Are we, meaning the Fort Myers Police Department, is that resonating with the community? Do you see a change in where they understand they can help in a lot of ways?
The change is slow,
okay.
And I'm not good with slow. I like things to move and like to see that. But this is something that building relationships and building bridges is a continual, daily, every call for service, we have to think about that. Every time we have a contact, we have to think about that. And it's going to be something over time when, for our push, the importance of it, it's going to happen over time. It's improving, I think. It's just a slow process, and I think that has to do with understanding cultures, understanding what everybody's role is within the community, but we are moving in the right direction.
All right, Chief, let's bump you out.
All right, man.
Coffee with a cop.
It's a lot of fun.
All right, stay right there.
All right.
As the saying goes on this particular show, for those who say it can't be done, they are usually interrupted by those like our great police chief, Doug Baker, and all the fine people at the Fort Myers Police Department who are doing it. When we come back, Paula Dotto, General Manager, CTN 10, right here on Leap His Life. Stay with us.